Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast, brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners like you to maximize your business value and achieve the exit of your dreams, whatever that means to you. With insights gained from over 100 business transactions, we share real-world strategies, lessons, and expert advice to help you build long-term, sustainable value in your business. Each episode is hosted by one of our Mastery certified partners. They're seasoned experts who've helped countless business owners navigate the complexities of growth, scaling, and building value. They bring first-hand experience, actionable insights, and a passion for helping you build a business that thrives. So let's dive in.
Well, welcome to the Mastery Partners podcast. I'm your host, Dave Casey, and today we're kicking off our 2026 series of kind of a foundational topic, what readiness or transition readiness really means and why you should be thinking about it, even if your business, even if exiting your business really is the last thing on your mind. So I'm fortunate enough today to be joined by two of my fellow Mastery partners, Gil Bean and Scott Couchenour. Hi, guys. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Dave?
Good.
Yeah, I'm well as well, Dave. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to this. This whole series of interviewing each other, I think, is kind of cool. But these are really based on questions we get every day when we deal with clients, and so really, and we've decided just to make a series of podcasts based on real life questions that we get. So the one today should be fun. It's how do I know if I'm running a real business or just an overworked job? And this is a question I think every business owner kind of asks, usually without wanting the answer.
Right.
And the realization is really a breakthrough. It tells me when I hear that question, it's they're equating a transition with an immediate exit. And if they're ready to move from owner-operator to founder, they're thinking that right behind there is the exit. And that's not always the case, for sure. So really, I think what we'd like to do today is just dive into this and take a look at it. And, I want to get your guys' feedback on this, but in my estimation, or just the way I've always tried to approach things. I had my business for over 25 years before we sold it. And, but I never really thought about it as it was part of me or anything like that. It was always the business. And I always try to make it into an asset as opposed to, my life, into that. And I don't know what's been your experience. You both have been business owners. What's been your experience with, did you get involved in that deal where the business was just a big part of you?
Go ahead, Gil.
Wow, I'm only hesitating because there are so many answers to this question. And
we don't want to talk about any of them, do we?
Yeah, I'm just not sure where to start. Perhaps I'll start here, and that is that the old saw is, are you working in the business or are you working on the business? Working in the business is obviously the day-to-day 12, 15-hour days, doing much of the work, and I'm sure we'll get into that point before too much longer. As opposed to working on the business, which is being able to step back and take a look at what's happening, how things are going, and whether or not you're doing the right things for yourself, for your team, and for the business. Those are two very different things. And many times, I was going to say I think, but I really know that many times owners put off the idea of working on the business for the sake of working in it. So they wait. Well, they wait until they think they're ready to exit, or for some later undefined future date, they will wait to start working on the business. But up until that time, they're just going to continue at the pace they're at right now. So that's one answer to the question.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, Scott, how about you? Because I know you had a family business.
Yeah, we had a family business. My situation is kind of unique, I think, because what I experienced was an unwanted, unplanned exit. So when I was on the other side of that closing of our family business, the thing I struggled with was after the fact, after you could do anything about it. And I realized afterward, looking back, that I actually did see the business as not as a business per se, but as a job, because only because of the impact to me personally, right? The question that we're wrestling with, how do I know if my business is a business or just a job, an overworked job? I really think that a business owner asking that question intuitively knows the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, the first question to ask is, when was the last time you went on vacation? And when you did,
right.
Did you truly go on vacation? And if the answer is no, I have not, or I went on vacation, but I never unplugged, there's an answer.
Yep. And people deal with that different ways. So there's a wonderful M&A attorney that we work with at Mastery Partners here in the DFW area. A longtime friend. I've known him almost 20 years. And actually, well before I was associated with Mastery, he helped me sell my business. So he's a single proprietor. He certainly has other folks he works with, but he's a single shingle kind of guy. Has done hundreds of transactions, probably $1 billion in business at least, in terms of transactions. And he will freely admit he has a lifestyle business that it's not a transferable business. He is the business, but he goes on vacations. Like he's about to leave for an 80-day cruise around the world.
Wow.
But he works from the ship from time to time. And so he and his wife is fine with it. She says, hey, he gets up early and, types on the computer for a while. And then, we're free to go tour around and do what we're going to do. So she says, it pays for our lifestyle. We're really happy with that. So there is a way to do both, I guess. But more often I see that the business owner, like you said, they cannot leave. They can't unplug. Certainly would not expect to be able to leave for 30 days at a time, a whole month away from the business without calling in, without emailing, without checking back. And there's probably reasons that falls into place. One of them is the way decisions are made in the business. And Gil, have you seen it where basically all decisions, large and small, come through the business owner?
Yeah, there's no question. In the parlance, it's owner reliance. It's called owner reliance.
Yeah.
And the foundational question for the business owner is, how would the business do without you? How would the business do without you? And that normally gets a lot of silence and blank stares.
Well, usually it's like, I've never tried.
Well,
I don't have time. I'm trying to answer so many questions. I don't even have time.
Yeah.
But
I don't have time to talk to you because I got people at my door, So.
I think that the challenge really kind of is rooted in the very inside of the business owner and what they consider their identity, because it's gratifying to be the one that everybody comes to. I mean, I work with a business owner who, when we first started working together, struggled mainly with the fact that he loved being the knight on the white horse to come in and save the day, have the salespeople do as far as they could, but then, hey, Mr. Owner, we need your help on this situation. And he loved that. Yeah. And that became a definition of his identity. And I think we business owners, especially those who have egos, which I'll go ahead and say it, most of them are men.
Sure. Yeah.
We like to be the answer giver, the fixer, the doer, and that's okay. But in the context of transition, which is inevitable, right? Neither can we stop a transition, nor can we choose sometimes our transition. Sometimes it's chosen for us. But so it becomes a problem when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's, I think talking to a business owner and like I said, I think almost everyone that I've ever dealt with kind of knows it's a problem, but they're okay with it because they built the business because they liked solving problems. Usually they like doing it better than either where they worked before or, I've seen people start businesses just because they couldn't hire anybody to do what they wanted done. And so I'm going to start a business to do that. And so there's some of that. And then, I think that firefighter syndrome, I love to fight fires, give me some more fires. So, and as we know, it doesn't lead to building much value after a while.
Right.
Well, I have a question for both of you, and that is there's a clear trend right now that baby boomers who were once anticipated to start phasing out of their businesses when they were 62, 65, or 67 in that range, and are now working way past that, well into their 70s. Do you think that has anything to do with the dynamic that Scott just talked about? The desire to do it all? Just a question. I don't know.
Well, in the work that I'm doing with personal planning, I think a lot of that has to do with the void of what's next.
Yeah.
If there's not a what's next, then there's likely going to be I'll just stick with the familiar. And to me, that's what is called the comfort zone. I prefer to call it the familiar zone, which is comfortable. We're familiar with what we've done for 30, 40 years. To think about not doing that is like going out the word exit. We go out the back door into this black abyss. So by contrast, we default back to, okay, I'll kick the can down the road another month or two or year and make that decision later, because not only is there a lot to do anyway, I don't know what I'd do without this. So
there are people, definitely people that I'm really happy. I've always done this. I'm really happy doing it. I've watched buddies of mine retire and kind of their health goes down and you only play so much golf and you're bored and,
right.
I'm not bored. There's a line of people at my door, so.
That's right. Got purpose, right?
I heard something actually on the radio this morning that was interesting. It was a interview with one of the analysts that works with Wall Street Journal, but they're talking about this year in particular. It seems like graduates coming out of college are having a tough time finding jobs. And there's several reasons for it. The underlying reason that everybody was trying to drive it to was, well, it's AI, because AI is replacing everybody and all this kind of stuff. And he said that plays a factor, but it's not a big factor. Companies still realize they have to hire people. They have to, get people in and grow them, in an organization. One of the things is that companies are, they're reluctant to let go of experienced employees. That, we used to talk about ageism, where you got to a certain age and the company's trying to push you out the door. And now they're trying to entice people to stay, these baby boomers that have a body of knowledge. And so it's really interesting. It's like they're not getting out of the way for the next generation to take over. So it's and it kind of goes downhill to the entry level,
So I'm thinking if I were 35, 40 years old again, I would simply wait until the exit was inevitable and it took place, and you buy a business on a fire sale and you just build it. You've got the bones of an organization.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot of it has been dependent on the owner, but when the owner is gone, you could build it. You've got a staff of people, but we're not talking about those people. We're talking about the people in the trenches working on a business that won't
leave.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about it. And you alluded to it, that why this destroys value within the business. How does a buyer look at a guy that's just kind of buried in the day-to-day of his business?
Has a tremendous impact. Well, first of all, the buyer, that question that I asked before, how does the business, what does the business look like without you? That's going to be foremost in the buyer's mind. If that's not one of the first 5 questions that a buyer asks, I don't know what is. It's right up at the top. So it's a it's not a positive thing for a buyer, because they want to know that the various responsibilities within the organization are spread out over a team of people who really understand individual processes, and work with them and improve them and refine them every day. It's a very critical issue. I would say that if owner reliance is probably the number one thing on the number one point that the buyer wants to resolve, wants to understand clearly. If the business is reliant on the owner, how is it possible to move ahead and improve that situation? Or is that a deal breaker? Does that break the deal right from the beginning?
If I were a buyer looking at a business, the first I would look at relationships, and I would ask, what are the three top key employees that you have? What are the 3 top vendors in your organization? And what are the 3 top customers or clients in your business? Now tell me, how deeply ingrained are you with those 9 people? And how much do they rely on you? Because, to the extent that like, if the owner sells, are they going to lose those top 3 employees? Are they going to see this as their opportunity to move on to something else? The vendors, maybe it was built on a deep relationship, and clients built on a deep relationship. That it makes the business less valuable, because the buyer will not pay for a vulnerability. They won't pay for a risky business. They're just not into that. That's why they have due diligence. They'll put a letter of intent out there, but then it's subject to due diligence. What they're looking for is, where are all the vulnerabilities? We don't want to buy a liability or vulnerability. And so I'd look at relationships, because that's what a lot of work and business commerce is based on.
Yeah, and it's go ahead, Gil.
I was going to say, an extension of what Scott just said is that it's one of the reasons why buyers sometimes end up buying a part of a company. They'll buy a part of a company that's attractive because of the relationship. The relationships with customers are not spread too thinly, or the relationship with vendors. There's no dominance in either one of those sectors, but maybe over in another part of the business, another division per se, or for example, that might be prevalent, and they wouldn't be interested in doing that. So there ends up being a segmentation of what the buyer's interested or not interested in, what a competitor might be interested in or not interested in. A lot of different dynamics take place there.
Yeah, and I've seen firsthand a couple of times where there's buyers that the seller is like, oh yeah, I've got everything down. Everybody, this thing kind of runs itself, right? Mm. And I'm certainly, I founded it, and these bigger clients, I originally signed those clients, but now my team's taking care of them and all that kind of stuff. And but when they get to due diligence, sometimes that story doesn't hold up. And I think that probably the statistic that hurts the most is that probably 70% of deals fall apart in due diligence. that either the buyer comes back and says, yeah, this is not what you really said it was, so we're revising, here's what we can offer for this.
Right.
Or they just walk away silently and just say, well, just not a good fit, and good luck and see you later. But sometimes they will just open up and say, here was the problem. I've got a buddy right now. He has a ranch that's really a resort. It's a good sized ranch. It's used for all types of camping and retreats and all that kind of stuff. And he turned it from a personal ranch into a business. But he's intimately involved. I mean, he's making decisions on, bed sheets and cleaning services and all this kind of stuff. And he's got it up for sale. And he thinks that it's a big advantage that he says, I will stay on as the GM, if you will, as somebody takes it over, just because I know everything about everything. I know every building and the history behind the air conditioning systems and blah, 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 and all the way down the road. And he thinks that's a plus. And I'm sure the buyers are looking at going, if we buy this, we have our own ideas what we're going to do. And it probably doesn't include this guy, so.
Yeah. Well, I think it sounds like you limit the pool of buyers when you take that approach. I'm sure there are some buyers who would say, great, we have a built-in GM. I'll be a mailbox owner, don't run kind of thing.
Yep.
But
And then they look at the GM and go, well, how long can this guy stay?
That's true.
So
That's
he's
true.
kind of grizzled.
Not 30 years old anymore.
Really? Yeah, and Dave, one of the other outcomes to the example that you just stated there is that they'll say, yeah, you please stay on. We want you as the owner to stay on. But part of your liquidity is going to be tied to the performance of the organization over the next 2 to 3 years. And then the owner goes, I don't mind that. So.
Yeah. So that turns from a cash deal to a very large earnout. They have to perform against.
The E word.
And also, I think would shrink the multiple that they get as well. Definitely cases. Do you guys have any firsthand examples, maybe clients that you've dealt with that really ran into this kind of buzzsaw of owner dependency, and either screwed up the deal or it just didn't turn out the way they dreamed?
Well, I'm working with a prospect right now who started off the business. She absolutely loved what she did. It was a passion project. And I guess you'd call it, fortunately or unfortunately, it grew and became popular and became very, very, I'm thinking of the story in the book E-Myth, where someone starts out, hey, you're really good at what they do, and you ought to open a business and sell these pies. Very similar situation. Now it's killing her. And thankfully, these owners recognize this, and they're looking at, we can't live this way forever. What was a passion is now this burden. And what do? Well, we can't really sell because of all that we've been talking about so far. I mean, it wouldn't be worth the sale because everything is dependent on me. So the only other option is to build things like standard operating procedures and, build the moat around the business so that it is not as dependent on her.
That's really interesting. I think this is more prevalent in very small businesses where solopreneurs are running the business rather necessarily than entrepreneurs. And in that situation, if they decide to leave, that is truly a lifestyle business. That is truly a job. And they are looking for someone who wants the same job, which is really usually a very narrow slice of the market. I definitely see that, and the example that Scott cited in the E-Myth. Was it a pie shop or a bakery?
Yeah,
Or,
I think it was a pie shop.
Pie
It
shop.
was known for building great pies.
Yeah, yeah. That
Yep.
was a great example of exactly that dynamic.
Yeah, and it's so there's things. Obviously, I think we've zeroed in on where the pitfalls are, what the problems are. Part of our charter at Mastery Partners is to, when we engage with the business owner and we perform our transaction readiness analysis, a lot of these things come to light typically.
Yes.
And I wanted to highlight a few things that maybe we can do, or suggestions we can make to help them start building a business that would run without them. So the first one I had is zeroing in on those decisions. This takes some time, I think, but decisions that they're involved in that they don't need to be involved in.
Yeah.
And if you guys had firsthand experience of either getting away from those yourself or helping a client get away from them.
There were 4 questions that I ran across years ago that I now employ in this context. The first, the 4 questions are: what must be done? That's the first question. That only I can do. Those are the 2 key. The other 2 are nice to have if you can. And that is, I'm good at it and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times you're doing things that have to be done that only you can do, that you don't enjoy or you're not good at, only because of the position that you hold in the company.
Mm-hmm.
But time after time, when you do that analysis, the number of things that must be done that only you can do are minimal, because you can build systems, you can hire strong people to do a lot of the things that must be done that you don't have to do.
Yeah.
And then that kind of narrows down just a couple of, a handful of things that only you can do. And it makes the business transferable because you transfer just a few things to the buyer instead of this enormous behemoth of decisions and intellectual property that resides in the head of the owner.
Yeah.
It also forces the business, if you will, to create viable processes. When something is inside the owner's head, as you say, Scott, you're exactly right. That can, it's just off the cuff. Nothing is documented. Nothing is really driven by process. When you allocate that to other team members, and they start to refine it and make it more viable, then the process becomes more robust, more valid, and certainly more attractive to buyers.
There's a question in the transition readiness assessment that we do at Mastery Partners, and that is, do you have an operating system?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, or I don't know, that opens up a whole can of awareness of owner dependence. Just that simple question.
Yeah, I had done a podcast last week with Amy and David, 2 of our other business partners, and that came up. We were really contrasting EOS and Great Game of Business.
Sure.
And it's funny. The conclusion was they are both business operating systems. They operate a little bit differently. EOS is very good about structure, I think. Scorecards, meeting cadence, length of meeting, how you do your one-on-ones, how do you establish KPIs, and really how do you solve issues. Great Game is interesting because it is more centered around open books management, where essentially you are sharing with the entire team, here's how we're doing. We're making money. We're not making money. We've got a challenge in this area. We're really killing it over here. And kind of encouraging people to, once they understand how their actions contribute to the greater good or eventually EBITDA of the company, then they will voluntarily or more likely to change their actions or improve their actions and stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I think that's a key thing, is if they don't have those processes down, and people are owning those that aren't the founder, then
Right.
that's
Well,
where we really get into it.
well, the thing about the EOS and Great Game and other operating systems is that it takes the relationship and emotions out of it, and you build a system. It helps you build the system, so the system becomes the bad guy,
Yeah.
and it
Oh yeah.
removes a lot of the or at least it helps to remove a lot of the emotion out of it.
Yeah, and I think that I've seen, certainly with my company, I was fortunate enough to join a Vistage group, and my Vistage buddies really helped me step back from a lot of the decision points that I was making in the business. And really, one of the things they talked about was transferring ownership of results, not just tasks.
Sure.
That's
Excuse me.
powerful point.
And that really helped me, because I think my employees, my team members, really became much more energized when they realized, I'm not going to tell you how to do this. I'm not going to micromanage you, but you are fully equipped to do this particular part of the deal, and I need you to do that, and let me know what kind of resources you need to do that. And we did that in the financial side, we did it in the technical side, we did it in the sales side, and it really had great results. So I've got to say that was and that helped me eventually transition out of the company, I'm so thankful for my Vistage guys.
Well, and transition out of the company successfully.
Yes. Yeah. Not
Yeah.
feet first, so.
Right.
I think one of the corollaries to system, one of the common denominators in the systems that we have been talking about, is discipline. I think the more that you, it can be viewed as a negative word, I suppose, but the more that things are allocated across the team, and people are given responsibility, and people are held accountable, you're going to have more and more discipline in the organization, which can only be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's a good point.
And I think the other thing I think it would help a business owner is that when you're transferring that responsibility, that you're also looking at it not just I'm not just blindly turning this over to you. We're going to have a system of audit and follow up
Sure.
and process,
Mm-hmm.
so that don't feel like I'm giving you this responsibility. If you screw it up, oh, it's your head, buddy.
Right.
So
All or nothing.
and so that you're giving them more to do and take on responsibility, but you're not penalizing them for making mistakes. And obviously you try to design it so they don't make any fatal mistakes for the business or themselves. But
What I would I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
What I would say to a business owner who is listening to this and saying, you have no idea how busy I am. You have no idea you're asking me to add another hour to a 24-hour day because I am just up to my eyeballs. Well, Gil used the word discipline in the right context, discipline and boundaries. There's freedom in boundaries.
Yeah.
I like to look at it in terms as well as building in a practice. You don't have to change everything overnight. In fact, you can't. Working on the business has to keep going. But I've always been successful at helping business owners look 2 or 3 weeks out into their calendar when it begins to open up just a little bit, and put 3 30-minute slots as appointments in the meeting, and treat it like an appointment. And that's where you carve out that 30 minutes 3 times a week, or whatever cadence you choose, and you work on the system, on the business. And when the alarm goes off, you stick a pin in it and you go back into the business. Then that next appointment pops up, you pull the pin out, set the alarm, and pick up where you left off. And you just chip away at it little by little by little. Over time, you'd be surprised how far you can get.
And it is the 80-20 or 90-10 rule. One of the I guess it's a business operating system. We didn't really treat it that way, but we ran on the 4 disciplines of execution for a few years,
Yep.
which was a book several years ago by, well, it was McChesney actually wrote it.
And Hewling.
Yeah. Yep. But it was a great book and a great concept of the whirlwind is going to occupy 80% of your time. That's the line of people at your door, and best customer just left or best supplier just went bankrupt, and all those things that we can't control.
Right.
But the piece that we can control, the 20% or 30, hopefully 30%, but say 10 to 20%, then we really need to focus on those when we have that time, and don't try to do 10 things at once. It's just boil it down to 1 or 2.
And if you can normalize that as just a part of doing things, I call them teeth brushing kinds of things. You just do them. It's just what you do.
That's super.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I think we addressed it. It's hopefully somebody that's viewing this will say, wow, I'm not going to have a transferable business unless I solve this problem. I think that's number one. And it just so happens that we're in a position to help, so,
That's right.
Not just the 3 of us, but Mastery Partners in general. And so really, I mean, every day, business owners really make these decisions that really impact the value of their company without realizing it. And we're trying to help them make the right decisions there. So that's really why, Tom Bronson, who's our founder, helped put together the Transition Readiness Assessment, which is a deep dive into a business. But it's a rapid result tool that really uncovers the hidden value gaps in the business, and its owner dependency is certainly one of the largest ones that we'll find there. And we'll heat map that, and we'll figure out, where are the points that can be, changed that will have the most impact on the value of the business. Whether there's an exit in the cards in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, it really doesn't matter. The business is just going to be better, I think. And really, we dedicate somewhere between 2 and 4 hours to just gathering the data, and several more hours analyzing it and bringing it back. So we really think that's one of the strongest things we can do to help a business owner. So if you're viewing this and you can really get a feel that you really want to know where your company stands, you can go to masterypartners.com and learn more. So we hope that this conversation today with Gil and Scott really has given you clarity to lead with purpose within your company. Guys, I thank you so much for your time and expertise. We're all kind of the same generation, so we think we're smart and wise, and hopefully others do too.
We're just as delusional as the next guy.
Yeah, that could be it. And if you're a business owner that are viewing this, just thanks for tuning in. And we have a succession of these. We'll be putting out podcasts pretty much every week for the rest of 2026. And next week is going to be an interesting one as well. Is what do buyers see in financials that I don't? So we're going to dive in a little bit of the financial side of that. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss it. Until next time, we want everyone to just keep maximizing business value. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Maximize Business Value podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas on how you can continue driving value in your business. But remember, it's not just about listening. It's about taking massive action. Visit our website, masterypartners.com, for more resources. Grab a copy of any of the books in the Maximize Business Value series on Amazon or via the links below. And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to know how to apply these concepts to your business. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to relentlessly execute while you maximize business value.